If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the February 14th, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Happy Valentine's Day. I imagine you thought you'd be somewhere else this evening, but here we are. So my name is Susan Finch, and I'll be presiding over tonight's cases as the hearing officer. Let me start by introducing Mr. Brian Grady. He's to my left. He's with the county's Development Services Department, and he'll introduce other staff members as well as go over tonight's changes to the agenda. Mr. Grady.
Good evening. Again, for the record, Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. Before we go through the changes and the published withdrawals and continuances, I will announce the other staff persons joining us either in person or on virtual. With county staff joining us online will be Isis Brown, Chris Grandel-Lenard, Michelle Heinrich, Tim Lampkin, and Sam Ball. Representing the Planning Commission will be Andrea Papandrew, and representing our Transportation Division staff are James Ratliff, Richard Perez, and Alex Steady, and representing the County Attorney's Office, Mary Dorman and Cameron Clark. Now we have two changes on tonight's agenda. The first is on page 5 of the agenda item. On page 5, major mod application 22-0090. This is being withdrawn from the zoning hearing master process. That is, I can remember which item number that is. Item A21. And the other change on the agenda is on page 9 of the agenda, item D6. This is major mod application 22-0102. The applicant is requesting a continuance to the April 18th, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. I believe the applicant is either in here or online to explain the reasons for the request, and he's here in the audience.
All right. Is the applicant here? Good evening.
I need your microphone, please.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Matt Newton of the law firm of Shoemaker, Lipton, Kendrick, 2800 North Tampa Street, Tampa, Florida. After the continuance, as a matter of right deadline, our team determined that a redesign was appropriate and prudent for a better project to the lot layout. That would require additional staff review to make sure everybody's on the same page. Respectfully request this continuance to the April ZHM.
All right. Just to check, is there anyone in the room or online regarding major modification 22-0102 that would like to speak to the continuance only, just the continuance? Anyone in the room or online? Seeing no one, then we'll continue major modification 22-0102 to the April 18th, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Sir, can you state your name for the record and then come sign in for me?
Yes, it's Matthew Newton.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Grady.
I also note for the record, I believe I've neglected to note that Chris Grandel-Lenard is also with county staff will be attending the hearing. I'll now go through the published withdrawals and continuances beginning on page 4 of the agenda. First item is item A1, rezoning PD 20-01142. This application has been continued by the applicant to the April 18th, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A2, rezoning PD 20-1253. This application has been continued by the applicant to the March 14th, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A3, rezoning PD 21-0863. This application is being withdrawn from the zoning hearing master process. Item A4, rezoning PD 21-0959. This application has been continued by the applicant at the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A5, rezoning PD 21-0962. This application has been continued by staff to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A6, major mod application 21-0963. This application was out of order to be heard and has been continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A7, major mod application 21-1106. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A8, rezoning PD 21-1231. This application is out of order to be heard and has been continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A9, major mod application 21-1270. This application is to be continued by the applicant to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A10, rezoning PD 21-1321. This application is to be continued by staff to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A11, rezoning PD 21-1330. This application will be continued by the applicant at the May 16, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A12, rezoning PD 21-1332. This application is being continued by the applicant at the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A13, major mod application 21-1334. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A14, rezoning PD 21-1337. This application is being continued by the applicant at the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A15, rezoning PD 21-1338. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A16, major mod application 21-1342. This application is being continued by the applicant at the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A17, rezoning PD 22-0075. This application is being continued by the applicant at the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A18, rezoning standard 22-0076. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A19, rezoning PD 22-0083. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A20, major mod application 22-0089. This application is being continued by the applicant at the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A21, we dealt with the changes that is being withdrawn from the zoning hearing master process. A22, major mod 22-0103. This application has been continued by the applicant at the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A23, rezoning PD 22-0107. This application has been continued by staff to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A24, major mod application 22-0109. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A25, rezoning PD 22-0152. This application is being continued by the applicant at the April 18, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A26, rezoning PD 22-0181. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A27, rezoning PD 22-0207. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the April 18th, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A28, major mod application 22-0208. This application out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A29, rezoning PD 22-0209. This application is being continued by the applicant in the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A30, major mod application 22-0221. This application is being continued by staff to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. Item A31, major mod application 22-0223. This application is being continued by the applicant in the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. And item A32, rezoning standard 22-0295. This application out of order to be heard and is being continued to the March 14, 2022 zoning hearing master hearing. That concludes all withdrawals and continuances.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grady. I appreciate it. Let me start by going over our hearing procedures this evening. Tonight's hearing consists of agenda items that require a public hearing by a zoning hearing master. I'll conduct a hearing on each agenda item and will file a recommendation within 15 business days following tonight's hearing. Those recommendations are then sent to the Board of County Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Our hearing tonight is informal. I'll ask questions related to the scope of direct testimony. I may call and question witnesses as I deem appropriate, and will decide all questions of procedure. I'll take evidence, but will exclude evidence that is irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious. Evidence may be presented in written form, and all testimony must be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used to supplement or explain other evidence, but shall not be sufficient in and of itself to support a finding by me unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil action. Our order of presentation tonight is as follows. Mr. Grady of the Development Services Department will make a brief introduction of each agenda item. We'll then go to the applicant. The applicant and their team has a total of 15 minutes to make their presentation. Next, we'll go to the Development Services staff planner that was assigned a case. They will have 5 minutes to report on the county's findings and recommendation. Next will be the Planning Commission. They also have 5 minutes to present their findings of consistency with the county's comprehensive plan. Then we'll go to proponents, anyone who would like to speak in support of an application. Total proponent presentation time is 15 minutes. The same is true when we go next to opponents. Anyone who would like to speak against an application, 15 minutes altogether. Then we'll go back to development services, who have 5 minutes to amend their findings or make any additional comments given tonight's testimony. And then finally, we go back to the applicant, who has the last word. And they have 5 minutes for rebuttal testimony to address any issues they'd like to before we close the hearing. I don't think we'll have this issue. It doesn't seem like we will, but we will hold tight on those proponent and opponent 15-minute timeframes. If there seems to be a number of people, I'll ask for a show of hands. We'll see how many we have, and we will divide that 15 minutes by the number of people that want to speak to keep it fair. When you come up to the podium, or if you are participating online, if you could always start by giving us your name for the record. We are recording this hearing, and we want to make sure we know by the transcript who is speaking to which agenda item. For the first time you come up and speak, if you could give us your name and address for the record. And then when you're done, if you are in the room speaking here in the library, if you could see Allison, she's to my right, she's with the clerk's office. And if you could also sign in with your name, address, and the application number you are speaking to. Let me now ask the county attorney's office to provide us the legal requirements that govern your participation at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. I think it is Ms. Dorman, is that correct?
Yes, Madam Hearing Officer. Good evening. I'm Mary Dorman from the County Attorney's Office. Tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is the time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present testimony and evidence. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete factual record of each application, and no additional evidence can be introduced after the closing of each application. The second step of the rezoning process is a public meeting before the Board of County Commissioners, where the board will make a decision on each application heard tonight. Tonight's applications are scheduled to be heard by the board at its April 12th, 2022 land use meeting. When considering applications, the board will only review the record created at tonight's hearing and the recommendation made by the hearing master for each application. The hearing master will file a recommendation for each application heard tonight on March 7th, 2022. The Board of County Commissioners has established a policy that directs which rezoning and major modification applications are to be placed on the consent agenda of the board's land use meeting. Applications that propose to add density outside the urban service area, applications that are on roadways with failing level of service, and applications that have had evidence or testimony provided to the record by non-applicant parties of record either prior to or at the ZHM public hearing are not qualified for placement on the consent agenda. Applications which do not have consistent recommendations of approval or denial are also not qualified to be placed on the consent agenda. The board shall allow public testimony by parties of record at its meeting to consider the land use hearing officer's recommendation for any item on the regular agenda. Any public testimony shall be limited to the record of the proceedings before the land use hearing officer unless additional evidence has been found admissible in accordance with section 10.03.04D of the Land Development Code. A party of record is an individual who fits into at least one of the following four categories. First, an individual who is present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, an individual certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, an individual who submitted documentary evidence to the master file at least 2 business days prior to tonight's hearing. Or fourth, an individual who submitted documentary evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. Again, the content of oral argument before the board shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence submitted verbally or in writing to the hearing master tonight. It is the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that only individuals who have met these requirements are allowed to speak before the board and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, please make sure that all information you wish the board to consider at its public meeting is entered into tonight's record. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. As I said, all testimony must be under oath. So if you plan to speak tonight, if you are in the room or online, if you could please stand and raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right. Then with that, Mr. Grady, we're ready to call the first case.
The first item is agenda item B1, major mod application 21-0169. This is a remand application. The applicant is Todd Pressman. The request is rezone from PD and RSC 6 for major modification. Tanya Chappelle will provide staff recommendation at the presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening, Hearing Master Todd Pressman, 202nd Avenue South, number 451, St. Petersburg. I do have a PowerPoint for you to walk you through. Next slide, please. Issue is a major modification to PD 00-0171. Currently allowed is 62 multifamily dwellings. Proposed significant reduction of 60 multifamily units and 1 mobile home on 21.8 acres. So we have come back and forth quite a number of times, and in this circumstance, we're coming with a significant reduction of what's currently allowed. Next slide, please. Zoning Department does not create further incompatibilities. Planning Commission compatible with the surrounding development pattern. Planning Commission consistent with the vision of the Seffner Mango Community Plan. The project is in the USA. The project is an infill project. Next slide, please. We're located in the Mango Seffner area. Next slide, please. And you can see the parcel here, which is close to I-4 and I-275 or I-75. Next slide, please. This is that the property appraiser has it. And let me say, this is a really weird and different configuration of site that I want to walk you through. So you can see it's quite large at 21.7 acres, again, in the USA. Next slide, please. But the vast majority of it, and I'll break down stats for you, the vast majority is all wetlands. Next slide, please. That's Fish and Wildlife wetlands. Next slide, please. This is a zoom close-up of what was proposed as 62 multifamily units. Next slide, please. And again, is current. Next slide, please. This is some of the residential in the immediate area abutting the property. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. So proposed site plan and comp plan policies. Next slide, please. So looking at the plan, you'll see in the center is wetlands, wetlands, wetlands. Now, far off to the upper, to your left would be the one proposed mobile home. You can see that in red with the red arrow. Way on the other side is the proposed 16 units in that little corner, pretty much opposite the one mobile home. Next slide, please. So mobile home, one little mobile home up in the corner, and then multifamily in the other corner where the uplands are. Next slide, please. And that's just focusing for you where the two uses are. Again, I said it's a very weird sort of configuration. Next slide, please. So zooming in, there's a proposed 2-story, 8-unit apartment, 2 of them there, parking, buffer, and such. Next slide, please. A few conditions, which I have conditions to submit to you. 35-foot height maximum. We will meet the RMC 20 code unless otherwise specified. Mature oak trees on the north edge of the upland area will remain. Next slide, please. So here's the breakdown. About 80% of the property is wetlands. The only buildable area is 6.1% per the engineer. So this is a property that is extreme in terms of wetlands, and we're not seeking to move into or mitigate or impose on those wetlands whatsoever. Next slide, please. Future lands category UM20, which allows 20 dwelling units per acre. That does cause an incongruity by the Planning Commission that I'll talk with you about in a few minutes. Next slide, please. And the zoning map, you can see there's a lot of RSC, RDC, RSC in the immediate area around where the proposed actual buildable area is. In fact, that's all around. That's the only uses that are surrounding the site. Next slide, please. So the UMU 20 is specific for residential, regional, commercial, business parks, light industrial, multi-purpose, cluster residential, mixed uses, clearly recognizing large developments. Again, allows 20 dwelling units per acre. Next slide, please. So when you look at staff comments, next slide, please. For the planning from the PGM staff, they note that it is comparable to the residential uses approved under the PRS prior and does not create further incompatibilities. Planning Commission notes again compatible with surrounding development pattern for a number of policies. Next slide, please. Planning Commission also notes, as I said before, consistent with the Sefner-Mango Community Plan, supporting infill development. Planning Commission notes that 110 residential units could be considered on the site. We're requesting obviously far less than what could be considered in the site, which is roughly 10%. And obviously we're staying tremendously environmentally sensitive. Next slide, please. So where we run into an issue that generates denial from the Planning Commission, of which the zoning staff went into, is policy 19.1. This is the only policy that I'm aware of that creates a concern, creates a concern or issues from the Planning Commission. This is a policy that looks at larger new projects that are 10 acres under CMU, under UMU 20, or 20 acres under other categories. So basically, hearing officer, what Planning Commission is doing is they're placing this one policy that recognizes regional malls, large residentials, 20 acres and plus more. They're placing this policy on this property that is almost exclusively wetlands and just a very small area of residential development. Our position is that this policy is being applied incorrectly and it's incongruent with what's really going on at the site. Next slide, please. The intent of policy 19 is, again, residential, regional commercial, which this isn't, business park, which this isn't, research park, which this isn't, light industrial multipurpose. You can't put any of those uses on this property unless you're going to destroy those wetlands. That's not going to happen. But yet, Planning Commission is intent to apply this condition, as I understand it, the sole reason that they're not comfortable with this project. Next slide, please. Objective 19, 10 or 20, 10 acres or greater, notes that it has to have internal connections and has to request 2 distinct uses, of which one is at least 10% of the site acreage. Next slide, please. So when you boil it down, there's 2 issues. One is they want integration between the 2 uses under that policy. Second is they want a second use that's at least 10%. Next slide, please. So to meet that, we would have to build a roadway from the mobile home to the residential 16 units through the wetlands, which are pristine, to meet that criteria, which obviously is not going to happen and obviously is showing you how incongruent that policy is to place on this particular property. Next slide, please. So as far as we're concerned, we're providing 3 uses. The policy requires 2 uses. One is an environmentally secure, untouched, pristine wetland. And secondly is a mobile home, and third is multifamily. We think those are uses that clearly are well recognized in the county and meet the second criteria of that policy, which is to have more than 1 use. But even still, applying that policy 19.1 on this property is incongruent, in our opinion, doesn't work, and it's ill-advised to do so. Next slide, please. Obviously, trips and impacts are tremendously reduced. Previously, 126 average trips are allowed on the site now. This is reduced by 375 trips. We've reduced the AM by 25 trips and the PM by 30 trips compared to what's allowed there now. Next slide, please. So in summary, we're requesting tremendously far less square footage density. Trips are much lower. It's an extremely environmentally sensitive project, consistent with the community plan. As I've indicated, the intent of the comp plan, the objection or objective 19 doesn't apply well here at all. The proposed use, as both staff say, is compatible and cohesive. The proposed use that we're proposing is far less intensive, It's an infill in the USA, and to date, we've received no opposition whatsoever. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
No questions at this time of the applicant. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
can please sign in with the clerk's office. All right, we'll go to Development Services. Good evening.
Good evening. I would like to share my screen. Tanya Chapela, Development Services. This application is number 210169, major modification to a plan development. The applicant, Todd Pressman, seeks a major modification to PD for a 21.8 acre site to allow a 16 multifamily units and a mobile home development. The site is within the future land use classification of UMU20, which allows up to 20 dwelling units per acre and a floor area ratio of 1 for non-residential development. Surrounding areas have similar future land use and Res 9. The area today generally consists of single-family residential development.
Tanya, can you hear me?
Yes.
Apologies for the interruption. We're getting a lot of feedback with your microphone. If there's a way you can either lower the mic settings or just speak a little bit away from it.
Is it better now?
Stand by. Yes, thank you. You can continue. Apologies for the interruption.
The area today generally consists of single-family residential development and some commercial and light industrial uses. The applicant requests modification to allow 16 multifamily units and a mobile home. The applicant also proposes to reduce the number of allowed dwelling units and proposes a layout redesign. The proposed reduction of the allowed number of units are less intense and are comparable to the residential uses approved by PRS 05-1008 and does not create further incompatibilities with the surrounding area. However, the request does not meet the mixed-use provisions of the comprehensive plan as applied in the Objective 19 policies
Okay.
19.1 and 19.2. Furthermore, the proposed rezoning does not meet the intent of the Urban Mixed Use 20 future land use designation. Staff finds the request is not supportable. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
No questions at this time, but thank you. Planning Commission, please.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is within the Urban Mixed Use 20 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and the Sefner-Mago Community Plan. At the land use public meeting on November 9th, 2021, the applicant requested a remand to the January 18th, 2022 zoning hearing master meeting. The applicant later requested a continuance to the February 14th zoning hearing master meeting. The remand was to give the applicant an opportunity to address staff's denial recommendation. The site is located within the Urban Mixed Use 20 future land use classification, which is intended for urban intensity and density of uses. The type of use being requested can be considered within this future land use classification. Subject property is in a unique area with residential future land use classifications, as well as intensive future land use classifications. The predominant development pattern is residential with some scattered commercial uses. The proposed request would be compatible with the surrounding development pattern. Per Objective 16 and Policy 16.2 and 16.3, which provide direction on achieving compatibility with surrounding land uses through various transitions, buffering, and site planning techniques. There is significant amount of wetlands on the site, and per Policy 8.7, Objective 13 and Policy 13.3, the proposal is subject to the environmentally sensitive land credit, which will allow for up to 110 residential units on site, and the applicant is requesting far less than what can be considered on the site. Objective 19 outlines the intent of all mixed-use categories in the comprehensive plan. Policy 19.1 specifically states that requirements for 2 land uses will apply to properties 10 acres or greater in the RMU 35, UMU 20, and CMU 12 future land use categories, and to properties 20 acres or greater in the SMU 6 and NMU 4 land use categories. Furthermore, at least 10% of the total square footage of the building must be designated for a second use, as well as internal connections between the uses. The request does not meet the mixed-use provisions of the comprehensive plan as outlined in these Objective 19 and Policy 19.1 and 19.2. Though the applicant is requesting two distinct uses, as per policy direction, the uses need to provide integration and connectivity. Additionally, the second use being provided would need to be at least 10% of the site acreage. Objective 8 in Policy 8.1 mandates the range of acceptable land uses in each classification in the future land use element. Policy 8.2 requires all development to be compatible with the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning does not meet the intent of the Urban Mixed Use 20 future land use designation by not providing internal connections between the two uses and not providing at least 10% of the acreage that needs to be dedicated to the second use. The proposed use is consistent with the vision of the Saffron Mango Community Plan by supporting infill development and redevelopment within the urban service area. The requested use can be considered within the Urban Mixed Use 20 future land use classification and does meet the intent of the Saffron Mango Community Plan. However, without the request meeting the merits of the mixed use policies, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification inconsistent. Based upon the above considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification inconsistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Ms. Papandreou, before you leave, let me just make sure I get the your testimony clear on the record. So first of all, I understand the requirement based on the land use category for two land uses. So multifamily and mobile home, would that meet the criteria in and of itself for two separate land uses?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so it is the lack of connectivity is one issue, integration and connectivity. And then secondly, that second use, the mobile home, isn't comprising 10% at a minimum of the total area of the property. Is that correct?
Correct. Based on current policy direction, needs to be the two uses need to be integrated and interconnected to each other, which they are not. And it needs to be 10% of the acreage of the site for the secondary use, which is not meeting.
All right. And to Mr. Pressman's point, that policy or anywhere else in the comprehensive plan, there is no exception for the significant amount of environmentally sensitive land on that property. There is no, it's 20 acres or whatever the minimum threshold is that subjects you to this provision. The acreage, if it's more than half perhaps of environmental, there's no exception for that.
Current Objective 19 policies in the comp plan do not have any exceptions for that. No, at this time, no.
All right, that was my question. Thank you so much. All right, at this time, we'll ask for anyone that would like to speak in support. Anyone in favor, either in the room or online for this application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to the request? In the room or online? No one? All right, we'll go back to Development Services. Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Pressman? 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I couldn't hear Ms. Pampagher. When you asked her, if I may, with all due respect, you asked her a question if the mobile home and the multifamily be two separate uses. I thought I heard her say that they would recognize those as two uses, or did I misunderstand that?
I thought I understood her. Ms. Papandreou, if you could come back on camera. My question to you was, are you there? Yeah. My question to you was, does the mobile home use and the multifamily use meet the criteria for two land uses as required by the comprehensive plan, understanding there's other issues?
Yes, based on the staff report, they are considered two distinct uses.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I don't have anything else. We appreciate your attention. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pressman. Then with that, we'll close major modification 21-0169 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item C1, rezoning standard 22-077. The requester is zone from AR to ASC1. Isis Brown will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Madam Hearing Master. I'm Michael Horner, 14502 North Dale Mary Highway, Tampa 33618, representing Sizemore Properties LLC. I'll be brief. Ms. Finch, we were here in December, I believe, and we recognized that there was a small northwest parcel of this tract, if I may point it out. It would be this folio, Ms. Finch, 93215, which is about 0.35 acres. And it was recognized that since it is deemed SPI-HC, Special Public Interest, Hillsborough County Resource Protected, that we would need to continue this case and seek a hearing before the Hillsborough County Resource Board. That hearing was conducted on January 18th. I'm going to file on the record, if you don't already have a copy of that approval, of that board finding that finding to be a no impact or no effect is the term that they've used. And we believe that that issue has now been put aside. Just so you know that we didn't just protect it, we removed it. So we are no longer seeking the rezoning of that tract. It's still a large parcel. It's 77.7 acres. Now it's about 77.35 acres. We are within the Res 1 in the comp plan. We have worked through all the other issues. It's not a PD. We do have some wetlands. We certainly acknowledge that we have to go through that delineation prior to any subdivision platting or permitting. That being said, we're willing to proceed with that caveat. Also, this tract is surrounded by similar ASC 1 and AS 1 zoning. We are consistent with the Res 1 plan sector, which allows for the 1 acre lots. The Hillsborough County Board was aware of that, certainly. We went through the zoning requirements for the ASC 1 district. I would note that this is probably our third or fourth rezoning representing Sizemore Properties LLC. We had 3 parcels, tracts, I should say, south of Keysville Road to the south. We are on the northern side, of course, southeast of Swilly Road. My client is in the agricultural business. My client is Jamar Produce. He is not a developer, so this is more of a estate planning process. My client will not be developing it. There's no contracts to develop this property. There are 2 structures on this property. One was the one that we just deleted and removed, and that is referred to as the Lewis Good Golf Shell Station, historical structure, certainly on the landmark status papers, and we rightly deleted that for any further consideration. My client has maintained that. My client has worked around that site to make sure that structurally, at least, it's intact and is protected. The other structure is noted as the Farnsworth residence. It's a beautiful 2-story, architecturally from the period, 100 years old or so. Actually, my client's daughter, Jennifer Sizemore, and her family are now attempting to move in and rehabilitate that structure. So that is not on the landmark status. It's not protected. It's simply an historical structure. So I want to make it very clear that we have no intention of impacting either of those 2 structures, and in fact, actually rehab and protect. We have uniform recommendations of approval, findings of consistency. We have no objections from any review agency. I'm going to file this paperwork in the record for you from the HRRB, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Just a quick clarification, make sure I understand. So previously, that historical property was included in your acreage and now it has been lessed out.
Yes, ma'am.
Understood.
And in fact, on the notice, that was the primary reason we had to continue. In addition to the protection of the special public interest, is we did not reflect that as SPI-HC and AR2ASC1. So twofold, we removed that property entirely, and then our notice was cured for the defect of just simply being AR to ASC1.
Okay, understood. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am.
If you could please sign in.
Sure.
Development Services.
Good evening, Isis Brown, Development Services, reporting case of standard rezone 22-0077. The request is to rezone from the existing agricultural rural AR zoning district to the agricultural single-family residential zoning district 1. The proposed zoning district for ASC 1 permits agricultural and related uses in single-family conventional developments on lots containing a minimum of 1 acre. As listed by the applicant and agent, the folio numbers, and that the SP, I always get this wrong, sorry. SPIHC, that property on the very, it'd be the east side, has been deleted. It's the subject parcels, approximately 73 acres, located east of South County Road 39 and north of East Keyville Road. It's located in the rural service area and located in the East Rural Community Plan area. The future land use of the property is Res 1. The surrounding areas to the west, Res 1. Immediately to the east, AR and Res 1. To the west, north, and south is Res 1, and immediately to the east is AR and Res 1. The current density and intensity of the property, it's 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres, and the proposed density is going to be 1 dwelling unit per 1 acre. The property is surrounded on the north side of AS1 and AM, agricultural mining. To the immediate south, AR and AS1. And then to the immediate east, it's AR, AM, and AS1. And then to the immediate west is County Road 39, AS1, AR, ASC1, and of course the SPIHC historic property. Current zoning, it's AR with mathematical maximum of 15 dwelling units, give or take. Proposed would be 77, but that is not the case. You have to take into consideration the reduced roads and stormwater and other improvements. And as the agent did state, there is some wetlands on the property. The site is located in an area comprised of agricultural and single-family residential uses. The majority of the area and the site is within the Res 1 future land use category, which permits agricultural and single-family residential. The property is adjacent to similar zoning districts. The size and depth of the property in relation to other adjacent agricultural and residential uses would create a zoning development pattern that is consistent with the existing zoning and development pattern of agricultural and residential uses, the zoning districts in the area. The site is located outside of the Hillsborough County urban service area. Therefore, the subject property should be serviced by private well, water, and septic. Additional findings. The Farnsworth House property, part of this rezone application, RZ 22-007, contains a historic resource. The Farns House is listed on the historic resource inventory, listed as FMSF 8HI00204. Additionally, the Farnsworth House property is adjacent to a designated historic landmark, the Lewis Good Golf Service Station, registered as FMSF 8HI01028. However, per HRRB review of rezoning 22-007, which is listed in the record, HRBB determined the proposed rezone poses no effect on either of the historic resources listed above. Based on the Res 1 future land use classification, the surrounding and development pattern and the proposed uses development standards for ASC 1 zoning district. Staff finds the request approvable. I am available for any questions.
Just a quick comment, Ms. Brown. It looks like, based on Mr. Horner's testimony and my question to him, that finding under 5.1, the report needs to be changed, if I am understanding it correctly, because he's now removed that part of the property from this application, the Farnsworth House property. And it looks like the headers also for your staff report need to be updated to the proper dates. But is that your understanding, that this application has been revised to less out the Farnsworth House property, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, then we'll go to the Planning Commission.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the residential 1 future land use category. It is within the rural service area. It is not located within a community plan. The subject site meets the intent of Objective 4 and Policy 4.1 of the future land use element by maintaining the low density, large lot residential character of the rural area. According to Objective 9, all development must comply with all federal, state, and local land development regulations. Policy 9.1 states that each land use plan category shall have a set of zoning districts that may be permitted within that land use plan category. This site is located in the rural area and has a future land use classification of residential 1, which permits 1 dwelling unit per gross acre. The intent of the residential 1 category is to designate areas for low density, large lot residential uses that are compatible with short-term agricultural uses. The proposal to rezone the subject site to agricultural single-family conventional 1 meets the requirements of the residential 1 future land use category and Objective 9 and Policies 9.1 and 9.2. Objective 16 and its policies protect existing neighborhoods and development by ensuring compatibility with the surrounding area through various buffering requirements and mitigation techniques. Policy 16.8 specifically requires the density and lot sizes of the surrounding area to be compatible with new development. The existing uses in the area are primarily agricultural with low-density residential dwellings. Policy 16.10 states that any density increase shall be compatible with existing, proposed, or planned surrounding development. Compatibility is defined as the characteristics of different uses or activities or design which allow them to be located near or adjacent to each other in harmony. Compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character of existing development. In this case, the surrounding area has existing agricultural single-family conventional 1 zoning districts and preserves the existing rural residential character of the area. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 16, Policy 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, 16.8, and 16.10. The proposed rezoning also meets the intent of the Agricultural General and Retention Policies 29.4 and 30.6 that provide for the preservation and expansion of agricultural and related uses, especially in the rural area. In addition, the proposed to allow for development that's consistent with Goal 7, which seeks to preserve rural residential areas, and Goal 12, which directs development to be compatible with existing and planned development pattern found in the surrounding area. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone in support? Seeing no one. Anyone in opposition to this request?
We have one opposition in person.
Okay. In
Ri-
person or online?
In person, Richard Everett.
All right. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak in opposition? I don't see anyone coming. All right. And you're sure no one online?
No one online.
All right. Then with that, we'll go to Development Services. Anything else?
Nothing further other than we will update the report
All right.
and make those changes. And I believe also the graphics need to be updated also.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Mr. Horner, we'll go back to you for a rebuttal. You have 5 minutes.
Apologies. Thank you, Ms. Finch. I'll be brief. I just want to make sure I didn't misrepresent anything here. The historically designated landmark is the Lewis Good Gulf Station at the northwest corner, which we removed. The Farnsworth here, that is not a landmark status, but it's recognized as an historical structure.
Ah,
So we did not less out this structure because my client's daughter and her family are moving into it. Ms. Finch is located right here.
all right. So is that what was subject to the Historic Resources Board finding?
They reviewed both, but the distinction was one is a landmark and one is just an historical structure. They ruled that there's no adverse impact on both structures by this rezoning. So I just want to let you know, we're not removing this Farnsworth structure.
So,
It will be zoned ASC 1, and then our clients will certainly protect it by developing around it.
all right. So I just want to make sure. So then the staff report would be correct when it says the Farnsworth House property, parentheses, part of this rezoning application. That's
Absolutely.
accurate.
That's right.
Okay. So tell me the name just for the record of the off-site historic property, the Lewis.
It's the Lewis Good Gulf Station.
All right.
Old service station, tanks removed. Now it's just a remnant cinder block structure. It was a country store, an antique store, and now it's, I think, just being maintained.
And the Historic Resources Board reviewed both that off-site and your on-site property and found no effect for both structures.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, then with that, we'll close rezoning 22-0077 and go to the next case.
The next item, agenda item C2, rezoning standard 22-0330. The applicant is John Stephen Harvey. The request is rezone from AR to AS1. Chris Grandin will provide staff a recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening, hearing officer Todd Pressman, 202nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. This is an existing zoning of agricultural rural. The proposed zoning is agricultural single family. The acreage is 3.67 acres more or less. Both the Planning Commission and Development Services indicate as consistent and approvable. The area, as indicating from the staff report, the area consists of single family residential and agricultural, and the parcel is directly adjacent to the single family residential to the south and to the north. Planning Commission notes that the proposed zoning will allow for 1 acre lots, which is compatible with the development pattern of surrounding areas. And AS1 zoning accomplishes it by providing more housing stock quantities in the area and establishing 1 lot consistency in the area, and recommend support. With that, with both staffs and support, I think this request is very straightforward. We've received no calls or opposition of any kind, and we would ask your review and recommendation. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Development Services.
Good evening, Chris Grandin, Development Services. Get my presentation up. Okay, we're here to present rezoning 22-000330. They're asking to rezone from agricultural rural to a proposed single family agricultural single family AS1. The location is at 11308 Walter Hunter Road in Lithia. It's in the rural service area. And it's in the South Shore area-wide systems community plan. The future land use is Res 1. Res 1 surrounds the parcel to the north, south, and east, and agricultural A is to the west. The Res 1 maximum density is 1 per dwelling unit per gross acre. The current, as I said earlier, current zoning is AR. To the north and south is also AS1. Zoning district immediately to the east is AR. And zoning district immediately to the west is A agricultural. The approximate 3.67 acre lot is Again, is located at 11308 Walter Hunter Road. Parcels an area comprised of single-family residential and agricultural. The subject parcel is directly adjacent to single-family residential to the south, zoned AS1, and to the west, zoned AR. To the north across Welcome Road are additional single-family residential lots, zoned AS1. The subject property is designated residential 1 on the future land use map. The Planning Commission found the proposed use consistent with the comprehensive plan. But the majority of surrounding uses and the zoning districts are similar to the request. The single-family agricultural lots zoned AS1. Therefore, the rezoning of the subject parcel from AS1 from AR to AS1 would be consistent with the existing zoning pattern of the area. Based on the residential Res 1 future land use classification, surrounding zoning and development pattern, and the proposed uses for the AS1 zoning district, staff finds the request approvable. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
No questions at this time. Thank you so much for your testimony. Let's hear from the Planning Commission.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. The property is within the residential 1 future land use category, is within the rural service area, and is located within the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan. The applicant is requesting the rezoning from agricultural rural to agricultural single-family 1 to allow for single-family homes on 1-acre lots. The immediate area is a combination of agricultural zoning districts. The applicant's request is compatible with all these zoning districts which contain agricultural and residential land uses. The proposed rezoning will allow for low-density residential uses, which is consistent with the growth management strategy, rural area objective 4 and policy 4.1, and the community design component subsection 1.4 on rural pattern characteristics, which strives to maintain the rural lifestyle. The maximum allowable density for the residential 1 future land use category is 1 dwelling unit per gross acre. The request is consistent with objective 8, policy 8.1, objective 9, policies 9.1, 9.2, as the agricultural single-family 1 zoning and the residential 1 future land use category both allow 1 dwelling unit per acre. The request is consistent with objective 16 and policy 16.7 and 16.8, which require compatible lot sizes. The proposed rezoning will allow for 1-acre lots, which is compatible with the development pattern of the surrounding area. The subject site is located in the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan, which sets guidelines for development in the area. The cultural historic objective sets out to enhance community capacity and retain the unique character of communities. The requested zoning accomplishes this by providing more housing stock quantities and establishing 1-acre lots consistent with the area. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor of the application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to the application, either in the room or online? No one. All right, Mr. Grady, anything else before we move on?
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Pressman, anything else? We're good. All right, then with that, we'll close rezoning 22-0330 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D1, major mod application 21-111108. The applicant's homes for Hillsborough. The request is for a major modification of existing plan development. Timothy Lampkin will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening. Dallas Evans with Landis Evans and Partners. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Florida Home Partnership, formerly known as Homes for Hillsborough. My address is 3810 North Dale Boulevard in Tampa. Can you get the next slide? This property is located on the northeast corner of 12th Street and Bell Street in Waimama. Next slide, please. And this shows the location more closely. Next slide, please. And the site is currently vacant, as you can see from the aerial. Next slide, please. Adjacent uses include apartments to the north and northwest, a small commercial office directly across 12th Street to the west, single-family detached and mobile homes to the southwest, south, and east, and a cemetery to the southeast. There's a wetland to the north of the property which receives stormwater runoff from the site. Next slide. The property is within the R6 feature land use category, as are all of the surrounding properties. Next slide, please. The apartment complex to the north and west is a planned development, as is the cemetery to the southeast. Zoning of the adjacent single-family residential properties include RSC 6, RSC 3, RSC 2, and AS 1. Next slide. This property was originally zoned as a planned development with PD 06-0103, which allowed for the construction of 40 multifamily apartment units. The PD was revised in 2007 via PRS to allow for 30 single-family detached homes on 50-foot lots. Our current request is for 38 villa units on individual lots, which would consist of 19 two-unit structures. Next slide. This is a representation of the original PD. This development would have consisted of a pond along the north side of the property and a ring of multifamily structures around a central drive. Slide. The PRS in 2007 proposed a single-family detached development. One item to note here is the pond at the southwest corner of the property. As I mentioned before, the runoff from this property flows to the wetland to the north of the property. The pond shown here is on the high side of the property. It'd be difficult to alter the drainage of the property to direct the stormwater to a pond in this location, and then to route that water back across the development to the discharge to the wetland. This layout is also less than optimal from a transportation perspective, with multiple dead-end drives and 6 connections onto 12th Street. Next slide. This slide shows the development that we're currently proposing. You'll notice the driveway on 12th Street matches the location of the 2 previous approvals, but doesn't have the individual driveways of the last PRS. Onto 12th Street, that is. The stormwater pond has been sited along the low side of the property so that site grading can better match existing grades. And this layout includes a mail kiosk and associated parking to meet current requirements. Next slide. The development character will consist of 38 villa units on individual lots, constructed as 19 two-unit buildings. Each lot will have a minimum frontage of 30 feet, which will present as 60 feet for each two-unit building. The project will have a single access onto 12th Street, and it's located in the utility service area. Water and sewer service will be by Hillsborough County. Next slide. This project required 2 administrative variances. The first is for substandard roadway. We're proposing to dedicate right-of-way and provide sidewalks across the project's frontage. There's already an existing sidewalk on the opposite side of 12th Street. However, the right-of-way width on that side of the roadway will remain substandard. We can't grant property that we don't have. So that requires that variance. The second is for connection spacing. Code requires a 50-foot spacing between driveway connections. The existing driveways on the west side of 12th Street are spaced closer than 100 feet apart, so there really isn't a location that would meet 50 feet spacing on either side. The proposed site plan more closely meets the code requirement for access connection spacing than the currently approved PD, which includes a roadway connection as well as those 5 single-family driveways with direct connections onto 12th Street. Both of these variances would be required for the currently approved PD as well. The county engineer has found both these variances to be approvable. We'll be submitting a copy of that email into the record. Next slide. To summarize some of the key findings from the staff report, the requested density is under the maximum allowable designation of the Res 6 feature land use designation. The proposed project may be found to be compatible with nearby development patterns. The proposed development is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Staff has found the request approvable, and administrative variances have been approved or deemed approvable by Mike Williams. We have not received objections from any of the review agencies. And with that, I'll conclude the presentation.
All right, thank you so much. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office. All right, development services, please.
Hello, Tim Lampkin here, Development Services, and I'm going to share my screen. All right. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Something.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Thank you. The request 21-1108. The location is in the Waimama community. It's located on the northwest corner of North Street and 12th. It's approximately 7 acres in size. As the applicant explained, the proposal is substituting detached single-family homes for duplexes, and it's concurrently increasing the density from 30 dwelling to 38 dwelling units. The future land uses Res 6. Uses in the Res 6 include residential, suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, mixed use development. The property is surrounded on all sides by the Res 6 future land use category. The current zoning and surrounding uses on the northwest corner of North 12th and North Street and 12th Street intersection, and it's approximately 2,000 feet northeast of the intersection of Westlake Drive and State Road 674. Immediately surrounding the area, the property is predominantly residential. This includes multifamily to the north, mobile homes, and detached and single-family residential to the south. And here is the site plan, just color-coded a little bit to help orient. And again, the applicant's proposing a 30 villa duplexes. They're proposing a 5-foot type A buffer along the perimeter, which is required, except on the north side it wasn't, and the applicant's proposing it on the north side also. The applicant requests no variations for site design, and the application does not request variations to the Land Development Code 6.0600 landscape buffering. The applicant has requested 2 administrative variances that the county engineer has found approvable. This includes the first is the reduction of the minimum access spacing between the project driveway and the next closest driveway, and the second administrative variance was found approvable, which would waive the 12th Street substandard road improvements. Staff found that the proposed project with the proposed development standards, existing scale and restrictions may be found to be compatible with nearby development patterns. The development satisfies the intent of the goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element of unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Therefore, staff finds the request approvable. I will note staff submits into the record a new report. There is no new information. It was really had to do with putting the transportation, incorporating that into the staff's report, but it was in the backup materials. And that concludes staff's presentation, unless there are any questions.
No questions. I do have the revised staff report, so thank you so much. All right, Planning Commission, please.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the residential 6 future land use category. It is within the urban service area and is located within the Waimama Village Community Plan. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 and Policy 1.2 by providing growth within the urban service area. The proposed plan development meets the minimum density required for properties within the urban service area by providing 38 2-family attached dwellings, which is consistent with the density expected in the residential 6 future land use category. A landscape buffer is shown on the north, east, and southern boundaries of the site. Surrounding the site is multifamily residential to the north, single-family residential to the east, south, and west, and public open space further south. The application is consistent with Objective 12 and Policy 12-4.1 of the Community Design Component, as well as Objective 16 and Policy 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, and 16.8 of the future land use element. The applicant is proposing a 50-foot right-of-way access to all the residential dwelling units and connectivity to the residential parcel located directly south, meeting the intent of Flu Policy 16.7. The request is consistent with Goal 6 of the Waimama Village Community Plan, as the proposal fosters an economically integrated community by not being gated, and provides housing to accommodate a diverse population and income level by providing duplex-style residential units. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one online? All right. Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, sir, you have the last word if you'd like, but you don't have to take it.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then with that, we'll close major modification 21-1108 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D2, rezoning PD 21-1329. The applicant is Nick Bracken of Bracken Renovations and Development LLC. The request is rezoned from AS1 to a planned development. Michelle Heinrich will provide staff recommendation at your presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Nick Bracken with Bracken Renovations and Development, 10941 Clay Pit Road, Tampa 33610. I'll actually be handing off my presentation to my engineer of record, Jen Grissom.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just want to introduce myself, Jennifer Grissom, 12406 Coney Court, Tampa, Florida. The owner is
Please state your name again.
I'm sorry, Jennifer Grissom.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The owner is proposing to rezone the 1.89 acre property from AS1 to PD in order to develop a 17-unit townhome complex with a private driveway. The future land use for the property is R9 with a maximum density allowed of 9 units per acre. The proposed density of 17 units is consistent with the allowable future land use density of 17.09. We're proposing a we're proposing a PD because townhome developments are unique and do not adhere to any of the county standard zoning districts, and therefore the rezoning to plan development is requested. It's consistent with the code, and we've already received administrative variance approval for the driveway location. It's not within 50 feet of either driveway on either side, but we've already received approval for that location from traffic. It's consistent also with the surrounding land uses, mobile home parks to the south, as well as residential to the west and PDs to the north and a church to the east. And again, we are not requesting any variations for site design. I'll hand it over to staff. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Then we'll go to the Development Services Department staff person, please. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. This is Michelle Heinrich with Development Services, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully that's showing up for you.
I see it.
Okay, great. As stated, this is rezoning application 21-1329. And this is a request to rezone property that is currently zoned AS1 to PD to allow for 17 single-family attached units. The property is 1.899 acres in size and located on the south side of Clay Pit Road, east of Williams Road. It is in the Res 9 future land use category within the Seffner Mango Community Plan and the urban service area. There are no PD variation requests associated with this application. As stated, the property is located in the Res 9 future land use category. This allows for a maximum density of 9 units per acre. It directs growth to areas with existing infrastructure and compatible development patterns. Typical uses in this in this future land use category include residential, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. In the general area, staff found that there's multiple residential types, noted single-family detached, single-family attached, and mobile home parks. To the north and south of the subject property outlined here on the map in red are existing mobile home parks. To the west is property zone AS1 developed with a single family residence. And to the east is AS1 property developed with a church. This slide shows a close-up of the proposed layout for the project. Again, it is for a maximum of 17 single-family attached units. Those units will have a 50-foot setback along Clay Pit Road, slightly over 114 feet setback from the southern PD boundary, and a 24-foot setback from the western and eastern PD boundaries. The proposed maximum building height is 27 feet, 2 stories, which at the setback proposed is in compliance with the 2-to-1 setback that requires 2 feet for every 1 foot over 20 feet in height. The project is also providing the code required buffering and screening along the east and west. A 5-foot type A is required along the west, while a 10-foot type A is required along the east. And to sum up our review, we found that the use is present within the area, incompatible with adjacent uses given the layout and proposed development standards. Again, no PD variations are requested. The project does not exceed the maximum density allowed under the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission staff did find this consistent with the comprehensive plan, and there were no objections by reviewing agencies. Therefore, staff finds this approvable, subject to conditions, and I'm available for any questions you have.
No questions, but thank you. Planning Commission.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the residential 9 future land use category. It is within the urban service area and is located within the Seffner Mango Community Plan. The maximum allowable density on the site is 17 dwelling units, and the minimum allowable density is 12 dwelling units. The application requests the maximum dwelling units allowed and satisfies policy 1.2. Subject property is designated residential 9 on the future land use map. The intent of the residential 9 future land use category is to designate areas that are suitable for low-medium density residential, as well as urban scale neighborhood commercial, office, single-purpose projects, and mixed-use developments. The proposed use is permissible within the residential 9 future land use category. The proposed residential development will allow for uses that are compatible with the surrounding development pattern and satisfies the intent of Objective 16 and Policy 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, and 16.8. Subject property is located within the limits of the Seffner Mango Community Plan. The proposed residential development furthers the goals of the plan, which seeks to enhance community character and ensure quality residential and non-residential development by supporting infill development and redevelopment within the urban service area while providing for compatibility with existing uses. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions of the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? In the room, online? No one? All right, Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
All right, sir, anything else before we close? All right, then we'll close rezoning 21-1329 and go to the next case.
The next item, agenda item D3 is rezoning PD 21-1335. The applicant is Taylor Morrison of Florida. It's a request to rezone from AR to planned development. I will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant. I will note this item is going to be heard at the March 8th BOCC land use meeting. Therefore, there'll be an expedited review for you, which means your report will be due on February 28th. So again, this item will be heard at the March 8th BOC land use meeting, and your recommendation will be filed on March 28th.
Understood. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Cammie Corbett here with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson representing the applicant. In the interest of time, I'm just going to have Ms. Alexis Crespo come up and give her planning presentation, followed by Mr. Steve Henry.
Thank you so much. If you could please sign in.
Thank you. Good evening, Alexis Crespo with RBI Planning representing the applicant. And I do have a PowerPoint presentation. If you could start on the second slide. My address is 10401 Highland Manor Drive, Tampa, Florida 33610. We are here before you tonight requesting your recommendation of approval to rezone the subject property, which is actually just under 81 acres in size, rezoning that from agricultural rural and commercial general to a unified plan development. This would allow for up to 242 single-family detached homes to be constructed on the property, along with private amenities and site infrastructure. Next slide. The subject property is outlined in red on the slide. It's located in the Ruskin Community Planning Area in the southern portion of Hillsborough County. It is located immediately to the north of 19th Avenue and to the west of 12th Street. The surrounding community is a mix of residential land uses, as you can see on the aerial location map. We also have vacant wetlands that are county owned to our north, and then commercial uses that line US 41, which bounds the property to the north and northwest. We are well within the service area, as you can see, and an infill project, which will effectuate the goals of the comprehensive plan, as I'll note in my presentation. Next slide. Just taking a closer look at our immediate abutting land uses, we do have church uses to our east. Across 12th Street, we have the Harbor Isles community, which is a planned development that's developed at a relatively low density of 1.3 dwelling units per acre, and you can see is a single family project. To the south of 19th Avenue, we have Chatham Walk, which is a slightly higher density, but still single family community. It's around 4 units per acre as outlined in your staff report. As you move to the west of our project, that's where we transition to some non-residential uses and a bit higher density type residential with the Holiday Palms RV Park, which is just under 12 units per acre to our immediate west, southwest. And then the Ruskin Family Drive-In Theater is also to our west on the northern portion of that shared property line. Next slide. This site is intended for development to accommodate continued growth within the county, as indicated by the future land use map. We are in the R12 future land use category. This does certainly allow for residential uses up to a maximum of 12 units per acre. We are requesting a lower density than the 12 and lower than the 75% maximum outlined in the comprehensive plan, and that is really to address compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood and also address some unique site specifications. And in the comprehensive plan, it does state lower densities can be considered where you have environmentally sensitive areas. The site does contain wetlands in the northern portion, which are being preserved, and we are clustering development on the southern portion of the site. The site is also within the coastal high hazard area. While we do meet all comprehensive plan policies related to shelter capacity and development within this area, it also is one of the criteria that allows us to have a lower density and still be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And then I've noted the densities to our south are approximately 4 units per acre, and we have Harbor Isles, which is even less than 2 units per acre. Therefore, our densities will be consistent, compatible, complementary with the surrounding development pattern. Next slide. This is our PD site plan submitted with the application. I'll advance to the next slide, which is an illustrative version, which is a little better to look at and walk you through. We do have our main ingress egress off of 19th Avenue to the south with a secondary ingress egress to 12th Street to our east. These would be non-gated to be consistent with the Ruskin Community Plan, which does promote connectivity and discourages gated entries. The yellow portions of the site are where the residential homes will be located, as well as private recreational amenities. You can see expansive on-site stormwater management, as well as the preserve and open space depicted in green. Also in line with the Ruskin Community Plan, we are proposing interconnections to our abutting land uses where appropriate. We are proposing a pedestrian connection to our north. That is county-owned lands. They appear to be environmentally sensitive, but if pedestrian connection can be accommodated in the future, we've shown for that on the PD site plan. And then to our east, we are proposing a vehicular connection to the church property should they ever redevelop or desire that connection point. I want to direct you to that western property line where we share abutting the Ruskin Drive-In Theater. We did receive some phone calls throughout the process from folks that were concerned that our project would potentially impact the drive-in theater with noise light impacts. So we are proposing a 45-foot vegetated buffer along that shared property line with the drive-in theater. This will help to shield any potential lighting from our community into the drive-in theater. And certainly from Taylor Morrison's standpoint, we want to buffer our homes from potential light and noise from that property as well. So happy to do that enhanced buffer along the property line.
To the west, excuse me for interrupting, to the west of your retention pond, is that the theater?
Correct. And that's the other key point here is that we don't really have any residential homes that are going to be directly abutting the theater property. You can see there's some home sites that will abut the RV park at the south end there, but largely it's just wetland preserve and stormwater management against the theater property. Next slide. So I've kind of touched on these points, but certainly between the enhanced buffering on the west, our proposed densities, interconnectivity with our surrounding land uses where appropriate, and preserving the on-site wetlands, we're consistent with the community, will be compatible and in line with what's intended in the Ruskin community. Next slide. Steve Henry is going to speak after me and get into more detail on the traffic, but we do have a design exception that was deemed approvable by the county transportation planning staff for our roadways. We are proposing reservation of right-of-way along those roadways in compliance with the county's corridor preservation plan. We do have proximate service to a bus route for future residents, and we do have potable water and sanitary sewer provided from Hillsborough County. Next slide. I won't belabor these comprehensive plan policies. I've touched on many of the key elements, and this is housed in your staff report as well as the Planning Commission report, but we are consistent with all relevant future land use element policies relating to density, residential development, and protecting Ruskin's small town character. Next slide. And I will just wrap up with, we do enjoy your staff's recommendation of approval. This is a logical extension of the residential development pattern in the area in a manner that will be compatible with both existing single-family communities around us, as well as the drive-in theater and the RV park. And in my professional planning opinion, we are consistent with your land development code and comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Steve Henry, Links and Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. We did conduct the traffic analysis for the project, and as Mrs. Crespo said, we have received a design exception that has been deemed approvable by the county engineer. Just want to walk through that real quick to explain to you the improvements that we're doing. Okay, so this is 12th Street here, which is the substandard road. And so what we're doing is today there's a southbound left turn lane there. It's about 330 feet. We're actually extending it to almost 650 feet. And then we'll be extending it up to our project access here. In addition, we're adding a southbound right turn lane into our driveway. Now, as part of the improvements for 12th Street, what we're doing, this is a typical section for that, which I'll enter into the record. But what we're doing is, in addition to widening it for the extension of the left turn lane, we're adding an 8-foot shoulder with 5-foot paved for the entire length of the improvement. So basically running from 19th Avenue up to our northern boundary there. So that will bring it up from our side of the street standard. We can't do the other side of the street because of limited right of way, but we are doing our side of the street to bring up the shoulder and also extending that turn lane.
Okay.
That concludes my presentation unless you have any questions.
I don't. Thank you. If you could submit those into the record, though.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Ms. Corbett, anything else?
Amy Corbett, no, that concludes our presentation.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Development Services, please.
For the record, Brian Grady, Hillsborough County Development Services. As noted, the request is rezoned from AR and CDU to planned development for 242 single-family units. I will note a little housekeeping. A revised report was handed out to update. Recently, we received the comments from the school board. So the report was updated to note their comments and articulate their comments and note that in our report. Also, an updated Transportation report was submitted into the record to update the existing analysis in that report regarding existing trips based on existing zoning approvals and then trips based on the proposal. The reason for the update is that that report did not calculate that based on the fact that a portion of the property is zoned commercial general. So that has been put in the record also, and the report will be updated accordingly to incorporate that revised report. Again, the proposal is for 242 single-family units. As noted, it's in a Res 12 plan category, which allows 12 units per acre. The applicant is only proposing 3 units per acre, which does not meet minimum density requirements, but the density is consistent with the development pattern in the area, which consists of single-family development to the east and south, and also to the southeast, along with some multifamily to the southeast. It's also in the coastal high hazard area. Therefore, it did meet an exception for the minimum density requirements of the comp plan. Staff did find this compatible with surrounding area, as noted. From a lot size standpoint, the 4,400 square foot minimum lot size is consistent with the development pattern in the area. The single family homes to the east and south have minimum lot sizes of 5,000. The minimum lot size of 4,400 is located to the southeast, and along with multifamily. There's just a mobile home park and commercial to the west, and cultural institutional uses to the north of the property. As noted by the applicant, they are providing a 45-foot natural preservation buffer along the western boundary in response to the concerns regarding ambient light impacting the movie theater to the west. As noted, the staff in our report is noted on the site plan, the majority of that boundary consists of wetlands and retention and floodplain mitigation associated with the project, with the small area on the southwest corner of the project having residential. Based on the considerations and the analysis contained in the staff report, staff does find this request compatible and available if you have any questions.
No questions at this time, but thank you. Planning Commission, please.
Andrea Pappinger, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the residential 12 future land use category. It is within the urban service area, as located within the Apollo Beach, Ruskin, and South Shore area-wide systems community plans. The intent of the residential 12 future land use category is to designate areas that are suitable for medium density residential development. The proposed density and residential use is consistent with the surrounding properties and meets policy 1.4 of the future land use element. The proposal meets the intent of objective 1 of the future land use element by providing growth within the urban service area. The proposed plan development does not meet the minimum density required for properties within the urban service area. However, the site is entirely located in the coastal high hazard area and meets the policy 1.3 exception that allows for less than 75% of the allowable density. In addition, there are wetlands on the site, which causes site design limitations. The proposed density is approximately 3 dwelling units per gross acre. The proposal is consistent with policies 1.2, 1.3, and 13.3 of the future land use element. The applicant is proposing a variety of single-family housing types that is consistent with existing development in the surrounding area. In addition, there's an amenity area, wetland preserves, and stormwater management ponds. North of the site is public institutional and educational uses. The east and south is single-family residential, and west across the US Highway 41 is light commercial and single-family. The applicant is consistent with Objective 12 and Policy 12.4.1 of the Community Design Component, as well as Objective 16 and Policy 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, and 16.8 of the future land use element. The applicant is proposing an internal roadway network to provide circulation within the neighborhood, off-site interconnectivity where appropriate, and clustering development away from the on-site environmentally sensitive lands. The proposed plan includes sidewalk connectivity to adjacent neighborhoods. Proposal meets the intent of future land use element policy 16.7. The request is also consistent with several goals found in the Apollo Beach, Ruskin, and South Shore area-wide systems community plans. Provides a variety of single-family housing types that's consistent with existing development in the surrounding area and protects the existing natural environment. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Department of Development Services. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in favor of this project? Anyone in support? All right, seeing no one, anyone in opposition to the request? No one in the room? Anyone online? All right, no, Ms. Corbett, anything else? Oh, I forgot, Mr. Grady, anything you wanted to add? Excuse me.
Just a note again for the record, this will be heard at the March 8th BOCC and land use meeting at 9 a.m. and your report will be filed on February 28th.
Understood. All right, Ms. Corbett, sorry. All right, then with that, we will close rezoning 21-1335 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D4, major mod application 21-1339. The applicant is Liberty Property Limited Partnership. The request is for a major modification of existing plan development. Tim Lampkin will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right, it's the applicant online, I understand?
Yes, good evening, Truett Gardner. Can you hear me?
I can.
Perfect. I'm going to share my screen real quick and just put up the site plan to give you an overview.
Thank you.
Okay, can you see what's on the screen?
I can.
Perfect. So this is the Tampa Triangle DRI. It's both the DRI and the PD for the purposes of tonight's hearing. This is more focused on the PD aspects, but the site plans are the same. The overall property is 136 acres. The property in question tonight is this parcel C right here, which has Causeway Boulevard on the north, and then Kearney Way on the south, which then bends around to the east, and then US Highway 301 on the west. And this parcel C is approximately 27.4 acres of uplands. What you see here in the dark shade is the delineated wetland and conservation area, which will be maintained. That's approximately 10 acres. And just to give you an idea of what we're doing, I thought the best way to do it might be to tell you what we are not doing as opposed to what we are doing. It's more of a DRI and PD cleanup exercise than anything. So first thing that we're not doing is we're not adding any additional uses. All of the uses that are being proposed are allowed under the PD and the DRI. The only thing that we're doing from a use standpoint is with respect to this parcel C, multifamily is not an allowable use. And so we're allowing multifamily to be added as an available use under parcel C. Secondly, we're not intensifying the site. There are no additional entitlements being sought. Instead, what we're doing is just increasing the current caps on the multifamily and the service center uses. The service center currently has a max cap of 125,000 square feet, and we're proposing that cap to be increased to 250,000 square feet. Multifamily has a current cap of 1,230. We're requesting that be increased to 1,630 units. And then third, we're not adding any trips to the site. This DRI is governed, in the end, the density is governed by the trips permitted. Those trips are 1,325 PM peak hour trips. And what we're proposing is still substantially less than what the overall DRI allows. So that in a nutshell is what we're doing. It's a lot of information because it's both a DRI and a PD, but just kind of distilling that down to its core. That's the request. Steve Henry is our traffic consultant. He can answer any questions you may have on that topic. And we have no objections from staff, no objections that we're aware of from any neighboring property owners, and no waivers are being requested. And so with that, I'll stand down, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just a quick question, make sure I understand. So the staff report talks about that there's no increase, I think you said this too, to the entitlements. And I understand that there's a trade-off mechanism in that DRI and the development order. And is that because of that maximum number of trips and those thresholds that things are being just moved around, even though we're putting multifamily units in this particular parcel, but nowhere exceeds or goes over whatever that maximum trip generation is. Is that correct?
Yes. So to state it again, it's 1,325 PM peak hour trips. And what we're really doing here is providing some optionality for that parcel C to either be used for service center or for multifamily. And under the worst case scenario, which I think is the multifamily scenario, we are still only at 80% of the allowable trips. And then just so you know, to be complete here, the only thing that's left, this DRI is essentially built out. If you can see my cursor, this parcel B, which is a very small parcel, is the only parcel that remains to be developed within the overall development. So it's a long way of answering your question, which is yes, the number of trips approved will not be exceeded. We're staying under that amount.
All right. Thank you so much. That clarifies it. All right. Development services, please.
Hello, Tim Lampkin, Development Services. I am going to share my screen.
I believe we're still seeing Mr. Gardner's screen.
Gardner, okay, good.
There you go.
All right. Case number 21-1339. Oops. Okay. It's on the wrong screen. Sorry, just 1 second, please. All right. The property is located in the Brandon community. It's the subject property is just under 27.5 acres. The Tampa Triangle DRI number 140 is 136 acres. So this is a 27.5 acre property located within the larger DRI. It's located on the southeast corner of Highway 301 and Causeway Boulevard. There is Interstate 75 interchange is approximately 4,000 feet to the northeast, as you can see here on the map. The adjacent property is predominantly comprised of properties within the DRI, and which includes a mix of uses such as multifamily residential, business, retail, office, and service center. And my apologies, no, having issue with the PowerPoint. It's not going forward, so I'm going to escape and
Mr. Lampkin, in the interest of time, if you just want to, I have your staff report in front of me. If you just want to briefly summarize your report so we can move on, that'd be great.
I will. Sorry about that. All right. So here you can see the surrounding zoning on the east, west, and south. It's located within the PD. North across the Causeway Boulevard is RSC 6 and C9. Here is a map. The planned development, again, is 27.5 acres. It's located within parcel C. This kind of shows you the proximity within the DRI. The applicant's requesting to increase the service center and office from 125 to 250, increase the multifamily from 1230 to 1630, and add the multifamily as a permissible land use within parcel C. As the applicant went over already, the companion development order amendment for Tampa Triangle DRI, it's being heard also concurrently at the April 12th, 2022 board land use meeting. The applicant is not requesting any variations to the land development code regarding landscaping and buffering. The proposed project with the proposed standards and scale and restrictions satisfies the intent of the goals, objectives, and policies of the flu element of unincorporated Hillsborough County. Staff finds the request approvable based upon all that, and my apologies for the PowerPoint.
No worries at all. All right. Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the regional mixed use 35 future land use category, is within the Tampa urban service area, and is located within the Brandon community plan. The subject site has a future land use designation of regional mixed use 35. The intent of this category is to form a regional activity center which incorporates internal road systems, building clustering, and mixing of uses, with development occurring as the provision and timing of transportation and public facility services necessary to support these intensities and densities are made available. The approved plan development has existing entitlements for the office, warehouse, retail, and multifamily residential uses, and meets the mix of use policies outlined in FLU Objective 19. This proposal will stay within the allowable entitlements per the DRI and original conditions of approval, and does not require a request to increase the currently approved base land use entitlements for the project. The project will not exceed an FAR of 0.75 and a residential density of 35 dwelling units per acre per the original conditions of approval. The subject property is in the Tampa service area, which means the site is in an area where the City of Tampa utilities are available. Though not technically in the unincorporated Hillsborough County urban service area, the site is located in a more urbanized area and is served by both public water and sewer, similar to the urban service area. These areas that are served by public water and sewer are where 80% or more of new growth is to be directed per the comprehensive plan. Per FLU Policy 1.4, compatibility is defined as the characteristics of different uses or activities or design which allow them to be located near or adjacent to each other in harmony. Compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character of existing development. Surrounding uses includes multifamily residential to the east and south, light commercial and multifamily residential to the west, and single-family residential and light commercial to the north. The proposed modifications to the PD are consistent with the subject property's underlying future land use designation and are compatible with the surrounding development pattern. The application is also consistent with Objective 16 and Policy 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3 of the future land use element. The request is consistent with the Brandon Community Plan, as it is a development of regional impact which advances Brandon's economic competitiveness in the region through a diversified economy and broader employment base. The modification to the plan development continues to support the intent of the Brandon Community Plan. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Department of Development Services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move to asking if there is anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support. Anyone in favor of the application? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one, either place. All right, Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
Yes, I apologize. This is Tim Lampkin, Development Services. We did submit a revised report for the transportation and a scrivener's error, and also the school board comments just came in, and so we'd like to incorporate them into the record. The school board did find that there was adequate capacity exist at Frost Elementary, Gunta Elementary, and Spoto High School.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lampkin. I do have that revised report, but thank you for drawing it to our attention. I appreciate it. All right. Mr. Gardner, anything else? You have 5 minutes rebuttal if you'd like to take it.
No, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your time. Then with that, we will close major modification 21-1339 and go to the next case.
The next item is agenda item D5, rezoning PD 21-1340. This is rezoning from PD and AS1 to plan development. Michelle Heinrich will provide staff presentation after staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. Madam Hearing Officer, this case came in with grand ambitions, much more interesting than what we're asking for tonight, which is simply to add 1.4 acres of dirt to an existing PD. The added acreage would allow for 3 more units in the RP2 portion of the plan development. The only minor issue we have with this proposal now is the standard zoning condition, which is being slapped on all zoning south of the Alafaya. And that regards the 2 CIP projects and the water pressure issues they're supposed to address. Because this is an existing improved PD that's already under development and construction, I believe we're going to work with development services to flush out some exact language as to how the prohibition on building permits would work with the existing permits that we have in hand. And I think we found a balance there that works just fine. With that, it's a very simple request. Again, just 3 units. It's just added acreage. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just a question, just to clarify. So I understand the bulk of this project is already approved as is, and you're adding that acreage for the 3 units. Is there any change other than adding those 3?
So just to be very specific, the unit count would go up by 3 from 434 to 437. The commercial on-site required in RP2 goes up by like 40 or 50 square feet. And that is it. Those are the only changes.
All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. If you could please sign in.
Yep.
Development Services, please. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully you're able to see that on your screen. And again, this is PD 21-1340. And this is a request to add 1.41 acres, which is currently zone AS1, to PD 20-0969. This PD is located on the south side of Rodine Road, east of Baum River Road. And PD 20-0969 was approved as a planned village project with 434 residential units, the permissibility for a public school, and a village node. And this PD is located in the RP2, which is the majority of the southern portion, and Res 4 future land use categories. The new acreage being added tonight is in the RP2 future land use category. And if approved, this will increase the unit count by 3 to 437 residential units. It would continue to allow for the permissibility of a public school, which has been moved slightly northward from Hayes Clan Road compared to the existing PD 20-0969. And it will also continue to have the required village node. Under the previous PD approval, there was a waiver that was approved for a reduction in the perimeter buffers. And being as this is a new PD, that request is in front of you again today, and it has not changed from the previous waiver. The subject site is located in the Riverview Community Plan area, and therefore it is not subject to the moratorium. And the RP2 area is in the rural service area, while the Res 4 is in the urban service area. And as you likely know, in the RP2, we have a maximum density of 2 units per acre, and that's when it is in a planned village development pattern, which requires the clustering of residential lots to preserve additional open space. And then, of course, the Res 4 future land use category allows 4 units per acre, and both of these allow for residential uses. The surrounding development in the area is that it is developed with residential neighborhoods, as you can see on the map here on the slide. Also, there are areas of conservation and recreational uses. Property to the north is zoned PD and AS1 and is developed with residential and open space. To the south, also PD and AS1, and that's developed with residential under the current AS1 zoning, as well as other planned villages that have been approved but have not been fully developed yet. To the west is AS1 zoning with residential development, And then along the east, like it is for the south, it is zoned PD and AS1 with existing residential in a standard zoning district and then planned RP2 projects. This slide shows the two lot layouts, or I'm sorry, the proposed site plans. One on the left with the school site shown in the dark gray in the northwest corner, and then if not developed with the school site, the layout of the project. There are no changes from the previously approved PD in terms of lot size, which will remain a minimum of 5,500 square feet with 50-foot lot widths. With the 3 lots, the clustering ratio will be maintained. Open space will continue to be provided and also at a size that would meet the 3.5 minimum clustering ratio. The village node will continue to be located where it previously was and has been enlarged slightly to accommodate the 3 additional lots. And there are access points on all PD boundaries, with the main entrance being on Rodine Road. This graphic here shows the previously approved buffers. As you may know, 70% of the perimeter is to be provided with a buffer. Under the previous PD that was approved that is being requested again today, they're asking for that to be reduced from 70% to 20 or 29% based on whether it's developed with the school or not. And then the areas that will provide the buffer, which are shown here in the yellow highlights along the west and the southwest, those widths, rather than being the required 250 feet, would go down to 50 feet. And the applicant continues to justify the reduction by providing enhanced screening. The fact that the majority of the property is located to adjacent planned villages, which will have a similar development pattern and also a cross access and serve as a larger neighborhood area. And properties that are adjacent to these perimeter buffers already are developed with significant setbacks that already provide a significant separation between those and the proposed planned village. So again, this is an expansion of 3 lots and it is internal to the project. The minimum density will still be met, as well as the planned village requirements of clustering, open space, and on-site commercial. There is no further reducing of the perimeter buffer waivers that were already approved. Planning Commission has found this to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we received no objections by reviewing agencies. Based upon this, we do find it approvable subject to conditions. And I would also note, as Mr. Malloy stated at the beginning of his presentation, on the record, we would put in that condition 34, which speaks to water improvements that are required. That condition does speak to additional demand, and staff would like to clarify on the record that that additional demand would be these 3 lots, not the previously approved PD. And that ends my presentation, and I'm available if you have any questions.
And just so I understand, that reasoning is because that this project was approved prior to this this condition being added to these projects. So it would be only subject to the 3 that are new.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And to make that clear, therefore, we believe we're going to propose a change to that condition to reference the 3 new lots.
Understood. All right. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Planning Commission.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the Residential Plan 2 and Residential 4 future land use categories. It is within the urban and rural service areas and is located within the Riverview and South Shore area-wide systems community plans. The application requests to modify existing plan development and utilize the planned village concept to develop a rural village consisting of a maximum of 437 single-family homes, a village node, and a potential school site. The proposed school site continues to be found consistent as part of the project. Approximately 25.1 acres of the site is within the urban service area. The residential 4 portion of the site falls within the urban service area. Per policy 1.2, the future land use element, all parcels within the urban service area are to meet minimum density requirements. The proposed development meets this requirement. The portion of the site is located within the residential planned 2 future land use category is within the rural service area. The purpose of this land use category is to promote self-sustainable development. The ability to obtain the maximum intensities or densities permitted on parcels 160 acres or greater shall be dependent on the extent to which developments are planned to achieve on-site clustering, meet the intent of the planned village concept, and demonstrate consistency with policies 33.5 and 33.10 of the future land use element. The requested design standards for smaller lot sizes within the planned village is consistent with the residential plan 2 future land use category, which requires clustering in order to prevent urban sprawl, provide for the efficient provision of infrastructure, preservation of open space, and the protection of the environment, meeting the intent of Blue Policy 33.6. The proposed request is meeting the clustering ratio of 3.5 units per net acre. The applicant has requested a waiver to the 250-foot buffer requirement in certain locations. The request will not negatively impact any of the surrounding uses, and staff concurs with the buffer waiver and proposed conditions provided by Development Services Department. The proposed single-family detached development complements the surrounding area. The proposal satisfies the intent of future land use element policy 16.3. It also satisfies the intent of goal 12, objective 12-1, and policy 12-1.4 of the community design component. Achieving road connectivity is an important concept of planned villages. The site plan demonstrates roadway connectivity in multiple locations, meeting the intent of policy 33.11. The site is located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan, which encourages attractive residential development that complements the surrounding character, promotes housing diversity. The surrounding development pattern includes a variety of lot sizes. There are existing single-family residential developments with lot sizes of 4,400 square feet, which is similar to the proposal. The proposed use supports residential development that complements the surrounding character, as well as provides for housing diversity consistent with the Riverview Community Plan. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the Future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions by the Department of Development Services. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this application? No one in the room? No one online? Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
Mr. Malloy, you have the last word if you'd like it.
I just wanted to add, when you asked if there's anything else to change with the application, I do believe that with the addition of the 1.5 acres, we redrew the school site a little bit to include that acreage. So just to be very clear, that is a change on the plan.
I did note that the 3 lots are internal, so it must be in that area around the proposed school. I understand. All right.
Okay. And that's all.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 21-1340. It's 8 o'clock, so we will take a quick 5-minute break and come back and finish the last 2 cases. So if you could be back at 8:10, we'll call it. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. We're resuming the February 14th, 2022 zoning hearing, master hearing. Mr. Grady, we're ready for the next case.
At the beginning of the agenda, D6 was continued to April, so we're on to agenda item D7. It's rezoning PD 22-0222. The request is rezoned from RSC 6 and CN to a planned development. Tim Lampkin will provide staff recommendation of the presentation by the applicant.
All right. From the back, good evening. Oh, okay. If there's anyone in the room or online that is going to speak tonight, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Again, for the record, Isabel Albert with HAF, 1000 North Ashley Drive. I'm here representing the applicant, and Michael Yates, our traffic engineer, is online. And I also have a presentation for you.
All right.
We can start on the second page too, please. So what we have for you tonight is a 4.53 acre site. It is located on US 41 and Adams Streets, and you'll see when we zoom in closer in the next slide. And it's also located in the urban service area. And this is the Gibsonton area. Next, please. Future land use is residential 6, which allows 6 units to the acres. As I stated, it's urban service area. It's in the Gibsonton South Shore planning area and is as well as in the coastal high hazard area. Next, please. The zoning. There's a mix of zonings. There's commercial neighborhood and commercial general in the area. The site is zoned commercial and residential. And then we have some residential with a mobile home overlay to the west. And we have a couple of mobile homes parked to the south, and show business residential as well in this area. Next. This is the site plan. What we have is 54 RV spaces. The comprehensive plan, or actually the land development code, allows for 12 units or 12 spaces per acre if you're located in the residential 6. So that gives us our 54 spaces. We will meet all the section 611, 110. However, we are waiving the setback from the major roadway, which I'll go forward. I'll explain further on the next slide. And we're also asking a design exception for Adams Street, which staff has reviewed and found it supportable. Next. So here's the area in question. It is required to have a 50-foot setback from a major roadway or 50-foot buffer. In this case, we have a 40-foot heavily vegetated corridor, the electrical pole corridor, and therefore we felt like that was pretty sufficient in lieu of an open space of 50 feet. So that's why we're requesting a waiver of 10 feet in order to allow this 40 feet. Next. So staff recommendation, development services found the request approvable. The planning commission staff found the request consistent with the comprehensive plan. All reviewing agency found the request approvable. The design exception did recommend, staff did recommend approval. And I'm here requesting for approval. I'm here if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions of the applicant. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. If you could please sign in.
Yes.
Development services.
Hello, Tim Lampkin, Development Services. I am going to share my screen. Okay. The 22-0222 is located in the Gibsonton community. It's 4.5 acres. It's located on the north side of Adams Road, west of US Highway 41 North. It's the subject property is primarily zoned as a commercial neighborhood and residential single-family conventional 6. It has 2 zonings, multiple parcels. There are 6 parcels are located on the west side of the site. The property is in the residential 6 future land use category. Immediately surrounding it is also residential 6. Typical uses include residential, suburban scale, neighborhood, commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. The current zoning, again, is CN and RS6. Directly south across Adams Street is CG, Commercial General. North and south along both sides of US 41 is a mix of zoning districts. As you can see here, there's PD, CG, CN, CI, Commercial Intensive, Commercial General. Here's the proposed general development site plan. They're proposing to have one full access on Adams Street, in compliance with 6.11.110 of the Land Development Code. They are showing a 25-foot setback along the perimeter of the subject property. They also are going to provide, and this will be the conditions, a storm shelter size of 20 square feet per residence based upon 2 residents per RV. And they're proposing 45 RV spaces. The applicant is requesting a waiver of section 6.11.110.I.5, basically to reduce the required setback of 50 feet along US 41 to 40 feet, abutting a mobile home or recreational vehicle park. The applicant does note that the overhead power lines provide 40 feet and an additional 10 feet would normally be required along the eastern boundary where it abuts 41. Staff does not object to the requested variation. The applicant does not request any other variations to the Land Development Code regarding 6.06.06. The proposed project, along with the proposed development standards, the scale, the restrictions that may be found in the conditions are compatible with nearby development patterns. It also satisfies the intent of the goals, objectives, and policies of the FLU element of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, and therefore staff finds the request approvable. That concludes staff's presentation, unless there are any questions.
I do have one question pertaining to that requested waiver. In your staff report, 5.1, it talks that it's a waiver.
Yes.
And then it describes it later as a variation that requires the hearing master's recommendation to include a finding subject in section 5, as you know.
Yes.
And so my question is it a waiver or is it a variation? And then I will point you back to the beginning of your staff report in the summary tables where it talks about PD variations. It says the applicant is not requesting any variations and you call it a waiver in that section. So the only reason I'm asking is the waiver does not require that specific finding, the variation does.
It is, thank you for pointing that out. Staff, would like to correct that in the report, and the correct request is a waiver to 6.11.110.I.5. Thank you for pointing that out.
No problem. Okay, thank you very much. That was my only question. I appreciate it. Planning Commission, please.
Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the residential 6 future land use category, is within the urban service area, and is located within the Gibsonton and South Shore Systems area-wide community plans. The site is also in the coastal high hazard area. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Objective 1 and Policy 1.2 that requires 80% of the future growth to be in the urban service area. Although the site would qualify for an exemption to minimum density per Policy 1.3, the proposed use will develop at 83% of the total density. The conversion provision in the Land Development Code for recreational vehicle parking spaces permits a maximum of 12 spaces per acre, which would be a maximum 54 spaces for the site, and the applicant is proposing 45 parking spaces, which is consistent with the density. The proposed development meets the intent of Policy 1.4. Policy 1.4 states that compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character of existing development. In this case, the subject site is already located in an area with similar uses, as there are 3 mobile home parks in the vicinity of the subject site to the west, northeast, and southeast. The subject site meets the intent of Objective 9 and Policy 9.2. that requires all new development to be in compliance with all local, state, and federal land development regulations. The applicant will comply with all necessary land development code regulations, inclusive of those that apply to recreational vehicle parks and the coastal high hazard area. Gated access to the site will be moved further east from its current position on Adams Street. And the applicant has requested a design exemption to reduce the required 50-foot setback from US Highway 41 South to 41 feet due to the presence of an electrical wire corridor. The subject site is in an area that includes a mix of residential uses that includes mobile home parks, single-family residential dwellings, commercial uses, as well as some industrial uses along US Highway 41 South. Although an RV park is not a permanent housing option, when compared to a mobile home park in terms of duration of residence, it provides a temporary housing option as well as opportunities for tourism. The site therefore meets compatibility requirements of Objective 16 and Policy 16.2, 16.3, 16.8, and 16.10 of the future land use element. The site is located in an area with large natural preservation lands to the west and a mix of single-family residential and mobile home parks to the east. The proposed RV park provides a compatible use for those visitors inclined to take advantage of the environmental features of the surrounding area. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component provides policy direction about designing neighborhoods that are related to the predominant character of the area. The placement of recreational vehicle park close to natural preservation areas in the west provides a compatibility of uses in terms of tourism. The subject site is consistent with Objective 6, Policy 6.2, and Policy 6.3 of the coastal management element of the comprehensive plan. The site is within the coastal hazard area and is within evacuation zone A. The proposed rezoning is through a site plan controlled zoning district, and the applicant is complying with all necessary requirements in land development code, as well as providing an 1,800 square foot storm shelter on site. The request is consistent with the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan, economic objective, specifically goals 1 and 3 that encourage the development of the tourism industry within its boundary, and also recognizes and supports the preferred land use patterns that are developed in greater detail in the individual community plans. The site is located within the limits of the Gibsonton Community Plan. Goal 2 of the plan states that Gibsonton will improve and enhance its neighborhoods through revitalization and incorporation of single-family housing as well as rental options. The proposed provides a temporary rental option for those looking to enjoy the environmental, recreational benefits of the surrounding area. Based upon the above considerations, Plan Commission staff finds the proposed plan development consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, anyone in opposition to this request? No one? All right, Mr. Grady, anything else?
Nothing further.
Ms. Albert, you can have the last word if you'd like it.
For the record, Isabel Albert. I just wanted to clarify that the Planning Commission staff report refers to a 41 buffer, but we're really asking for a 40. So I just wanted to clarify. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Then with that, we'll close rezoning 22-0222 and go to the last case.
The last item is agenda item D8, major mod application 22-0224. The applicant is TM Crowley and Associates. The request is for a major modification of existing PD. Sam Ball will provide staff recommendation after presentation by the applicant.
All right. Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Officer. My name is Nicole Neugebauer, and I'm a land use attorney at Stearns Weaver Miller in Tampa. My address is 401 East Jackson Street for the record. I have not been sworn in, if the clerk could.
Okay, if there's anyone else in the room or online that plans to speak, if you could please stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated. Yes. Go ahead.
I'm here tonight for a major modification in Riverview. Is there a way I can change the slide here? Okay, next slide. I'm here tonight for a major modification in Riverview. The property is south of Boyette Road, east of Balm Riverview Road, and west of McMullen Road. It's about 1.27 acres. Next slide. The property is currently zoned planned development and was rezoned to that in 2015 with a PRS in 2017. The property is in the residential 4 future land use category and is within the urban service area. Next slide. Surrounding uses to this property, the property is currently vacant. The use to the north is a pond, and there's also some commercial development and a school. To the south, there is a townhome development that was approved in 2015 as part of the same PD as the subject property here. To the east, there is vacant commercial and residential, which was also part of the same plan development in 2015. And to the west, there are trees, and further away, there is one single family home and Riverview High School. Next slide. The instant request today is to add a kennel as an approved use in Pod A. This would allow specifically a doggy daycare, and the most analogous use under the county's code is as a kennel. We're also asking to reinstate a waiver from the commercial locational criteria. This pod received that waiver in 2015 when it was approved for several BPO and CN uses. Because we are adding another commercial use, the Planning Commission staff asked that we re-request that waiver. We were also asking for a 20-foot type B buffer that would go along the west and south side of the property to buffer the townhome development and the residential home to the west. In addition, the building height would be limited to 35 feet. There would be one access point along the east side of the property from Newell Valley Loop. We are overparked, and there is a 5-foot pedestrian sidewalk that would go through Pod A to connect to Boyette Road. That was specifically requested by county staff in order to make sure there was a safe pedestrian walkway from the townhome development to Boyette. And then we are also asking for 2 waivers. One is for a 7-foot fence, and the other waiver is to allow a PVC type fence specifically in the kennel use. There, PVC is not listed as a permitted material. So we're asking for PVC to enhance the aesthetically pleasing for the surrounding residential uses. Here is the site plan of the property. You can see the proposed 7-foot fence along the northwest and south side. There is a outdoor dog exercise area where the dogs can play outside during the day. And then there's the larger building where some of the dogs would be inside for some of the day. There's the buffer that goes to the residential subdivision to the south. It's over 70 feet between the property line for the residential to the south and the southernmost point of the outdoor exercise area. Next slide. Consistency with the goals and strategies in the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and Riverview Community Plan. This project is within the R4 future land use category and is within the required FAR. This is specifically a neighborhood serving commercial development as a retail, commercial, or office use that is similar to the defined ones in that definition. This area is designated as residential on the Riverview concept map. However, all of the uses to the east down Boyette are also within residential, such as Public, CVS, Florida Orthopedic, several fast food establishments. So commercial is still allowed in that concept map. And then the applicant again is requesting a waiver from the commercial locational criteria, which was originally approved in 2015 when Pod A was approved for several BPO and CN uses. Next slide. Consistency with the Land Development Code and prior PD approval. When the property was zoned in 2015, Pod A was designated as commercial or residential uses with a maximum of 50,000 square feet, and they were limited to the following BPO and CN. I won't read all of them, but these uses are such as a coffee shop, a hobby shop, a jewelry store, personal services, home furnishing store, florist, pharmacy, bank, etc. The purpose of the CN category is to provide limited retail uses and personal services in freestanding buildings. I think that a doggy daycare or a dog kennel is a very similar use to those that are allowed in the CN zoning category. A dog kennel is not expressly permitted in any zoning district. Rather, it is a conditional use in many of them, and it is a conditional use in the CN zoning district. Slide. As I mentioned previously, we're asking for 2 waivers, one for the fence material and then one for the fence height. The first waiver for the fence height is because there is this is a corner lot, and we have 2 front yards, and under the code, 1 front yard that functions as a side yard is allowed to have a 6-foot fence. The 6-foot fence is also allowed on the west side and on the south side of the property. Here, this waiver would protect the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding community and ensure that the dogs are contained and will not jump over the fence. This will also decrease visual distractions to drivers along Boyette. And then the second waiver is to allow PVC fence material to be part of that 7-foot fence. Right now, the kennel uses are limited to chain link, solid wood, or masonry. But given that PVC is more aesthetically pleasing to surrounding residential and commercial areas, we are requesting to allow the PVC material. Fine. Again, if you look at the site plan to the north, west, and south, you can see the proposed 7-foot fence. This fence would only go around the outdoor dog exercise area, so it would not go around the entire building or property. There's also a existing privacy fence along the southernmost border of the property to further help with buffering to the residential uses to the south and to the west. Conditions to ensure compatibility. The hours of operation for this facility will be limited to 6:30 a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. There is enhanced screening and buffering, specifically a 20-foot type B buffering along the southern and western boundary. There is the existing privacy fence along the southern boundary, and we are proposing a 7-foot PVC fence around the outdoor exercise area. In addition, there is a distance that is greater than 70 feet from the southern border of the dog exercise area to the nearest residential home to the south. Good. In conclusion, the applicant has satisfied all Hillsborough County Land Development Code requirements. Staff has recommended approval with conditions. Planning Commission staff found the project consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, and we request a recommendation of approval. The applicant is here if you have any questions.
I have one question, and this may be more for staff than you, but maybe you can answer it while you're here. The staff report talks about the waivers, which you've described for the fence, but it also talks about a PD variation, and it pertains to that 20-foot buffer, type B buffer on the south and the west. Is that in your mind a variation? And if so, what is required and what do you, I understand that's what you're asking for, but what is the variation?
There shouldn't be a variation. We are proposing the 20-foot, the type B buffer, which I believe is what is required for this use.
Okay.
I don't believe it's a variation. Our engineer is virtual, and she may have a different opinion on that, but it's my understanding that it's not a variation. It's what would be.
It's just what's required by code.
Correct.
All right. We'll verify that with the staff person, though. Thank you. If you could please sign in with the clerk's office. All right. Does that complete the applicant's presentation? Yes, absolutely. All right. Thank you. Development services, please.
Good evening, Sam Ball, Development Services. I'm trying to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah.
I see it.
Okay. So good evening, Sam Ball, Development Services. This request is for a major modification to a planned development 15-0694 to include a kennel as an allowable use within Pod A. The 1.27 acre property is located at 11501 Boyette Road in the urban service area and is in the Riverview Community Planning area. The applicant is asking for a waiver to Part 6.7 for fences and walls to allow a 7-foot PVC fence to be installed where the maximum fence height is 6 feet. The site is within the residential 4 future land use classification, which allows up to 4 dwelling units per gross acre. And even though a 0.25 floor area ratio is the maximum for allowable non-residential uses in residential 4, PD 15-0694 was approved to allow up to 50,000 square feet of non-residential gross floor area, which comes out to a 0.22 floor area ratio for Pod A. Typical uses for residential 4 include residential, suburban scale neighborhood, commercial, office uses, and multi-purpose projects. The surrounding area contains a mix of commercial, institutional, and residential uses. A gated community with 424 lots, including single-family, conventional duplexes, and townhomes, was completed in 2020, and it joins the property to the south. It's also part of PD 15-694. The property to the west covers 18.59 acres and is developed for single family. The property across Boyette Road to the north contains a 12-acre man-made lake. The property to the east is developed for single family. Other uses in the area include Riverview High School, freestanding and strip retail, single family conventional, a religious institution, and vacant commercial. The proposed modifications include adding a kennel as an allowable use to Pod A. Pod A is the dark area shaded on the site plan to the left. Also, the existing condition of approval, number 9, which states that the developer shall construct a minimum 5-foot wide pedestrian cross access between the internal sidewalk system within Pod B and the Riverview High School campus. If approval cannot be obtained by the Hillsborough County School District for a direct connection, then developers shall construct a continuous walkway through Pod A, which connects to the internal sidewalk network within Pod B to the existing sidewalk within Boyette Road right-of-way. Such walkway shall be located to minimize pedestrian and vehicular conflicts. This condition is being changed to only be the developer shall construct a continuous walkway through Pod A, which connects the internal sidewalk network within Pod B to the existing sidewalk within the Boyette Road right-of-way. Such sidewalk shall be located to minimize pedestrian vehicle conflict. As proposed, the project will be built out with 11,000 square feet of building area to be used as a kennel. Based on the preceding consideration, staff finds the proposed major modification compatible with the existing uses, zoning districts, and development pattern in the area. Staff recommends approval of the request subject to conditions. This concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Yes, Mr. Ball, if you could answer my question that I posed to the applicant regarding your staff report and the notation of the PD variation on page 1 of your staff report, where it talks about install a 20-foot buffer type B along the south and the west. The applicant testified that she believed that that was a land development code requirement and not a variation. So is that just a Scribner's error in the report?
I believe, yes, I believe it is. And I'll have to go back and I'll amend the report.
Okay, so there is no variation request.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for clarifying. All right, Planning Commission, please.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. Subject property is within the residential 4 future land use category. It is within the urban service area and is located within the Riverview and South Shore area-wide systems community plans. The property is designated residential 4 on the future land use map. The intent of this category is to designate areas that are suitable for low-density residential development. In addition, suburban scale neighborhood commercial, office, multi-purpose, and mixed-use projects may be permitted subject to the goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element, development regulations, and conforming to established locational criteria. The proposal includes several site planning techniques that will mitigate for adverse impacts, including a 7-foot fence along the Boyette Road frontage and west side of the building, There is a dog play area 70 feet away from the residential development to the south. Additionally, there is appropriate screening proposed along the street frontage and parking area and a 20-foot type B buffer along the southern boundary. The application is consistent with Objective 16 and Policy 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3 of the future land use element. Per Policy 22.2, the site does not meet commercial locational criteria. To meet commercial locational criteria, at least 75% of the frontage associated with the use must be within the distance specified in the chart of a qualifying intersection in the Highway Cost Affordable Long-Range Transportation Plan. The site is over the 900 feet maximum from the intersection of Boyett Road and McMullen Road. It is approximately 1,930 feet. The applicant has submitted a waiver request for review. According to the request, the project is consistent with the residential 9 future land use category because a dog kennel is a suburban scale neighborhood commercial use as defined in the comprehensive plan, and the proposed FAR is 0.22. A dog kennel is a small commercial use that provides a personal service to the surrounding neighborhood. The applicant also states that along Boyett Road there are several neighborhood serving commercial uses such as Publix, CVS, Florida Orthopedic, various fast food establishment, banks, and gas stations. A kennel is a consistent use in this area and similar to those commercial uses currently permitted within the plan development. Finally, the applicant states the waiver of the commercial locational criteria was approved for Pod A with the original plan development. Based on this information, Planning Commission staff recommends that the waiver is granted. The proposal meets the intent of Objective 1 of the future land use element by providing growth within the urban service area. Per Flu Policy 1.4, compatibility is defined as the characteristics of different uses or activities or design which allow them to be located near or adjacent to each other in harmony. Compatibility does not mean the same as, rather it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character of existing development. Surrounding the property to the west is Riverview High School. To the east, there is single-family residential and light commercial uses, including a gas station, grocery store, and bank. Immediately south of the property, there is single-family residential townhomes. And there is a large man-made water body and vacant commercial land across the street on Boyett Road. The request is consistent with the Riverview Community Plan, as it avoids a strict development pattern for the commercial use and provides appropriate and compatible buffers and transitions to existing adjacent land uses. The site will provide landscape buffers and other design techniques that will transition the use to the surrounding properties. In addition, the request supports economic development in the area and will provide neighborhood service. And there are no applicable policies in the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Community Plan. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification consistent with the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County, subject to conditions proposed by the Development Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anyone in the room or online that would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone in favor? Seeing no one. Anyone in opposition to the request? No one. All right, Mr. Grady, anything else?
Just want to further clarify regarding the waiver. I think just to clarify, because they made reference to, doing the PVC fence. So really the waiver regarding the PVC and the 7-foot fence is sort of housed in 611. It's not in 607. Because because 607 would require variation. So I think it's sort of rooted in 611 because it requires screening around it, but it only provides for 3 types. And so it would be 6 feet would be the max. So I think that's where that's coming from. So
611 for both the height and the type?
Yeah, because it's rooted in that. So so I think that's how we get that being a waiver as opposed to variation. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. All right, we'll go back to the applicant who has 5 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. David Smith, 401 East Jackson Street, Suite 2100, Director of Development and Zoning. Thanks, staff, for their thoughtful presentations relative to the subject. But we have a question and a clarification, and not surprisingly, it's related to condition number 24. That's the water resources condition. Particularly, I wanted to get some clarification. Our Our client is a contract purchaser with a design build for the pet suites at this location. And he has some timing issues and he just wants to understand, would he be able to pull site development permits, just not building permits? Or, okay, so he would be able to pull site development permits?
Yes, it's just, the condition basically says we would not issue building permits until such time as those two projects are online. And operational.
And just to note, the conversations in the prior cases that had that particular condition, it had stated it was related specifically to the increment of development being approved. This condition is a more general condition. It appears to apply to all uses within the PD. And the other observation there, and again, just a question, is that there is no increment of development. There's no increase in square footage. This is a major modification solely to add a use not previously listed. And it's in fact a use that has less water use than, for instance, the eating establishments that are permitted. So I just wanted to put that out there as a question. And I know Brian and I have briefly spoken about this. It helps us that we can get site development permits, but also wanted a clarification as to what's the difference between this application and, say, the 3 units that were added to Rodine.
And to clarify, one thing we did not put on the record is, yeah, I think the condition would need to be clarified for this one, similar to that one, to clarify what is considered the increment development. But in working with the water resources and reviewing what was established, that basically new increments of development would be subject to the condition when you're modifying existing PD. So the application of that is that this is a new use, so it's a new increment of development, so it applies to a specific use. But we can certainly clarify that in the conditions that it's specific to, related to this particular change, and so it doesn't apply to previous approvals consistent with what we did for the other project.
Okay, no, that's very helpful. I do appreciate the clarification. Again, as a design build, it's very important to be able to meet your contractual obligations. It does help that we're able to get site development permits and phase into the building permit stage. That concludes our questions.
All right, thank you. If you could please sign in.
Yes.
Did you have anything you wanted to add before I close?
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time and testimony. With that, we'll close major modification 22-0224 and adjourn the hearing. Thank you all so much.